Knowledge. Thank you, love. Because I forgot that. I'm going to acknowledge our panelists, Chioma, beloved mentee of mine, Dr. Rashona Moss, and I'm sorry if I say any name incorrectly, and Dr. Anthony Raj. We can say Dr. Raj, correct? So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We are very, very blessed to have you. So usually in the beginning, I know Dr. Nani is going to do that later, but I usually just give people time to tell us where they're from, their school, how they heard about this. So obviously we're 45 here on the chat, so we don't need to talk, but you just put that in the chat so we can know where you're from, how you heard about us, so we know what's working and what's not working. Just introduce yourself. We want to, network and chat and have a good time here. So please don't be shy. And also throughout the program, if you have questions, just put it in the chat. But right now, just to give our stragglers some more time before we start, we're starting at 7:30, pretty late. So I want to make sure we're done quickly and we have stuff to do. This is Tuesday and people have work and people have school. So if you just put that in the chat so we know where you're from and how you found us and all that, we'll really, really appreciate that. At the same time, I'll just get our PowerPoint ready. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, I didn't see the chat, but I know I'm going to look at it later. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for joining. We're just going to give people 1 more minute to join, and then I'm just going to jump right in to our program today. Let's hear where you're from, how you heard about us. Please, please do not be shy. Do not be shy. Do not be shy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm assuming people are putting their information in the chats. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. This is all about networking. We appreciate that. So, okay, 7:33. Thank you all. You can continue chatting, but I'm just going to jump right in. My name is Dr. Marian Ajanaku or Dr. Eniola Ajanaku, whichever one works for you. And this is Lighthouse Scholastic Foundation. And I am the founder extraordinary of this vision. And I founded this organization due to my struggles. I was an international student. I was from a single mom, and I had this dream, so that's why we call it chasing the dream of going to medical school and becoming a doctor even from the youngest time that I knew. And it just looked insurmountable. It looked impossible. And it was tough. It was tough. But out of that struggle, I found a lot of things. I found Christ. I found relationship with God. I found friendship, lifelong friendships. I found who I truly was. And I made a decision that, you know what, I'm not going to allow anybody else go through what I went through, because there are ways we learn in life. We can learn through bitter experience, or you can learn through mentorship. And mentorship is basically people that have gone ahead of you in a journey, and they tell you what ways to go so that your journey is easier. And I found that one thing I really, really lacked was mentorship, and that would have made my journey so much, much easier. So I founded this organization out of that struggle. It was a vow I made to myself that I really, really struggled to become a doctor, so much more than I feel like the rewards that medicine are. And I felt that I have to give back to the other generation after me to make sure that they don't go through this struggle because they lack information. Because sometimes it's just, you just don't know what you just don't know because you don't have the guidance. So Lighthouse was founded based on this core values and principles. We are a Christian organization. We're open to all, obviously, but that is our building blocks, because through the struggle, I really, really truly found Christ. I really, really found not a religion. I found relationship with God, and I found so much more through it. So I really am passionate about making sure that you guys, the generation after me, number one, find Christ, find that relationship with God, and then don't go through what I went through. And that's why I created this platform, so that you have mentors and people that have gone ahead of you at different stages in life, and they can teach you and tell you what are the pitfalls and best what is the best path for you. So we have different expressions. This is one, but our other expressions are networking. We try to do dinners. We're hoping to do scholarships next year. So definitely pay attention to our email list. And we're hoping to do more dinners that are actually face to face and less virtual. So I'm not going to go too long because I tend to do that. I'm going to introduce our other board members, Dr. Love Anani, who's going to be our host today, who I think you guys have seen, and Dr. Falabomi Ajanaku, who's on the call. She could just wave. And I don't know if Dr. Thomas Jacob is also on the call, just to wave or to say hello to our participants right now as an acknowledgement. Definitely, we're going to be emailing you guys. This definitely is more about medicine and about MD versus DO panel and IMG versus American Medical School, and that's our focus. But I will be emailing you guys more of my life story and how I got to this point in my life, and we'll be having other things next week. But I just wanted to give that as a short introduction into our ethos, into our core values, and into basically my life story and why I founded this organization. So I'm going to pass it along to Dr. Love Anani right now, and he basically will take us to the end of this presentation. Let me see.
I know I can speak now, so either you're gonna have to control the rest of the PowerPoint, or I can share from my end, whichever one you prefer.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. I think that's
No problem. So everyone knows we are going to make sure the screen is small. There we go. We are going to be informal, but we're going to be formal enough that I promise this will be life-changing. Just to show you guys how enthusiastic and laid back we are, I will be allowing everyone to introduce themselves. We have a PowerPoint obviously put together for our lovely panelists. And if you don't want to talk, even though you should, I can definitely introduce you to everyone, but you can definitely introduce yourself. These are some things we have written down, but you can dive a little deeper. Everyone has about 1 to 2 minutes. To be informal and quick, yet professional, I will introduce everyone as Dr. Roshana, Dr. Anthony, student Dr. Chioma, and I'll be Dr. Love, but that's how we'll do it throughout the night. And I promise everyone this will be life-changing in the end. So first and foremost, Dr. Roshana, here's your slide, and if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for inviting me to be here. I'm very excited to be able to share my story and some wisdom and help you all along your journey. My name is Roshana Moss. I'm a DO. I went to the University of Georgia for undergrad. Go Dogs. We didn't win recently, but it's okay. I have a little bit of a non-traditional route. I did not go straight through from undergrad to med school. I actually got my master's degree in biomedical sciences first from the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. We actually have a campus here in Suwanee, Georgia. I did 2 years there for my master's, and I went into their medical program immediately after that. So I also born and raised here in Georgia, but I decided to go to residency in a different state. Which we can dive into that later if we would like. I did my residency at Garden City Hospital and also a few hospitals in Detroit, Michigan as well. So I did an internship my first year, then I did residency after that. So I did a total of 4 years. Again, non-traditional student, non-traditional resident, had a little bit of ups and downs, but we're here. And then I moved back home recently last year. So I'm currently working as a hospitalist at one of the Atlanta Metro hospitals here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next up, Dr. Anthony, if you'd like to unmute, you can introduce yourself and fill the audience into your story.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. My name's Anthony Rajasingam. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm very honored to be invited today to this great event. I'm excited to talk to you about my experience as well. I was an undergraduate at UCLA. I also was a bit of a non-traditional route. I worked in the corporate world as a project manager for about 4 years after my undergraduate experience and decided to go back to medical school. I ended up going to St. George's University in Grenada, one of the Caribbean schools. I graduated in 2017, went to residency in Arrowhead Regional Medical Center in Colton, was there for 3 years in internal medicine. Then I did a chief year, and now I'm a hospitalist at the Southern California Permanente Medical Group. It's one of the hospital systems in the West Coast.
And if everyone's wondering, that's why the sun is still behind him. It's so light
Yeah.
out.
Sorry, it's California.
Way it works. All right. And student Dr. Chioma, you are up if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chioma Akwinazu. I'm a student at Howard University College of Medicine, just as my lovely mentors, Dr. Love and Dr. Eniola, also attended. I also attended the University of Maryland College Park, where I graduated in 2021 with a Bachelor's of Science in Public Health Science. From there, I took a 1-year gap year before matriculating into medical school. And during that gap year, I worked as a medical assistant at 2 different locations. So I can also dive a little bit more into that later on. But I'm very happy to be here, happy to share my wisdom and experiences alongside these lovely doctors as well.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to stop sharing for now because I want everyone to be able to see the panelists. And yes, HU, you know, everyone out there has been putting in the chat the levels they are. I don't know about everybody else, but I've been reading them. Shout out to those who are in North Carolina with everything else going on with North Carolina still joining this panel. We know this is going to bless you, and even with everything going on in the state. And shout out to everyone just in general. I've seen people in the chat from high school all the way up to undergrad. So we are going to make sure for everyone chasing this dream that this will be here for you. You've already helped us by putting your levels in there. If you haven't, go ahead and put what levels you're in there because this is going to be interactive, right? If we see 95 high schoolers in here, we might spend a little extra time on the undergrad portion. If we see 95 juniors and seniors in here, then we're of course going to lead towards the people who are pre-meds trying to make that bridge. So while people continue to go into the chat, we are going to start again as if everyone is kind of in their early phases. For those who are in high school, I'm going to start with student Dr. Chioma because you are the most recent of us along this journey. For those who are in high school right now, how deep would you tell them they need to think about college? Is it just go to whichever one lets you in? Is it, oh my God, you got to find your major right now as a high school student? Should they be doing AP classes? Or is it just graduate, go to college, figure it out?
I would definitely say take your. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're good.
Yes, I would definitely say to take your time, pay attention to what you naturally gravitate towards, whether that's science, whether that's English, math, whatever the case may be. And truly like allow yourself to be open and explore different options. I don't think that you have to have it all figured out. Oftentimes people that go into medicine feel like we have to have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, etc. But truly allow yourself to just get to know yourself, see what you like, and also try and gain any exposure that you can. If you can find ways to shadow or to even just volunteer, volunteering goes a long way. And again, like just see what you naturally gravitate towards. I think that as you go along in your high school journey and again, gain more experiences, then you'll begin to see whether medicine is for you or not. And even going into college, you don't have to know whether you're going to be going to go to medical school for sure. You can start as pre-med and you can change along the way, and that's okay too. But what I will say right now is just focus, do your best in the classes that you have now, and the rest of the stages will come along later. And also apply too. I think that it is okay to explore your options when it comes to choosing a college, and apply to as many as you can, and get to know them just as they're getting to know you.
Thank you for that. And that's kind of what I want to dive into next. And I'll be going to Dr. Roshana first and then Dr. Anthony next. You guys both went to big undergrads, massive when you compared it to mine. But what made you make that decision? Starting again with Dr. Roshana. UGA,
Yeah.
go Dogs. How'd you make that decision? How'd you jump in there? And then we'll talk to Dr. Anthony about the UCLA journey.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually from a small town, Milledgeville, Georgia. I'm not sure y'all know that, but really small town. For me, I kind of always knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was like second or third grade. So I've always been on that trajectory. I was in all the health clubs. I was in HOSA. I don't know if they even still have HOSA now, but I made it a thing very early on. I knew I wanted to go to med school. A lot of people don't know that starting off, so I guess I'm a little different from some people. So I did strive to make good grades. I had straight A's. I had 1 B+ my senior year, but I had straight A's throughout all of grade school. I made sure, especially in my science and math classes, because that makes a big difference. I think one of the things I did not have, though, I did not know how to study for a standardized test. So I will say to all of you that are in high school right now, if you are struggling with standardized testing, definitely reach out to one of your teachers or mentors and learn how to take a test. Our lives are full of tests. For the rest of your life, you will be taking standardized testing. So I would recommend that you all take control of that now, because I did not have that. I did not have a mentor. I didn't know anybody that was a doctor at the time. And I think I struggled a little bit because I did not know how to study, not only for standardized testing, but also how to study for science classes. It's different from studying from English, social studies, or something of that nature. Studying for science is a different beast. And so you really have to learn how to now, while you're in high school, to study and figure out how to do that. I had a cousin that went to the University of Georgia, and so that kind of persuaded me a little bit to go. But I always liked the school. I know they had a good education. I knew they had a good pre-medical program. And I wanted to kind of get out of my shell a little bit. Coming from a small town, again, the University of Georgia is in Athens, which is also a small town. It's not a big town, but the school is large. I'm a big football fan, so I kind of knew I wanted to do that as well. So I get a little bit of both, a little bit of social and also the academics as well. And it was good. It was good for me. So I will say, if you are coming from a small town, don't be afraid to step out of your box and go somewhere that's different. I still was close enough to home if I needed to get home, but I was far away enough to where I could still kind of, grow and become independent. So it's kind of really up to how you're feeling, who you are as a person. Do you feel like it's time for you to kind of spread your wings? And then I did know some people who did 2 years at a smaller college. Then they transferred to a bigger college. So it's kind of really all up to you and your personality. There's no one right way to go. But those were kind of some of the reasons why I ended up at such a big academic institution.
Thank you. Again, same question to you, Dr. Anthony. And in your answer, please let us know why you chose UCLA over USC. Thank you.
Right. It certainly was not for football. That's for sure. I also was interested in medicine from a very young age. I'm from the Southern California area. UCLA is pretty close to where I'm from. And it was a great opportunity. There's a great deal of research, resources available to the undergraduate population. And I was very excited to go. I think that it's challenging. I think, as has been said about large universities, there's large undergraduate populations that are pre-med too. This is not a lie. Actually, on my first day of general chemistry, our professor stood up, and this was geared towards pre-meds. And he said, look to your left, look to your right. If you're a pre-med, only one of the three of you will end up going to medical school. So it's hard because sometimes people take a very cynical attitude towards medicine, And one thing I hope that you would walk away from this event from is that you understand that there are so many routes to becoming a physician, if that's truly your dream. And that's not the only path that's necessary. So many people go into other amazing professions. I was looking in the chat, some people are going into veterinary school. I see that there are other people in the other health sciences as well. So please understand, this is a noble profession and it's absolutely worth pursuing, but there are so many worthy professions too, so that if you have many options and you feel like you need to go in another path, you're being called in another direction, that's fair too. For me, it was pretty tough. We had very large classes. I was also used to being a very high achieving, like 5.0 GPA in high school kind of person, but college classes turned out to be very challenging too. The standardized testing was challenging. So it was a challenging process. And there are going to be people along the way who try and divert you from what your dream is, but just understand who you are and what's important to you too along the way. And, you'll get to where you need to be. Whether or not the path is as you imagined it from the beginning, it may not be. But in the end, you may look back and see that you had some necessary opportunities to learn along the way. And so I think that's certainly true of my experience. I think I mentioned that my experience was not necessarily the most common kind, but that's okay too. If you know where you want to go and what you want to do in your career, you can do whatever you need to do. And there are people to help you along the way. So sorry for a kind of long answer about the large experience at UCLA, but I'm grateful for it. I met wonderful people. One of your board members is one of my close friends. So
I love that answer. Thank you. And just for parity, I went to Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota. Very small college, liberal arts college, like 2,000 people go there total. And I'm sure there were probably 2,000 people in Dr. Anthony's intro to chemistry class. So just to put that out there, my main reason was money. They gave me the best scholarship out of everybody. And I knew being a pre-med, all you need is MCAT plus pre-med courses. And so I went to the place where I can get it done for the cheapest. And that's kind of like what Dr. Rashonda said. A lot of people do it like that as well. So to all the high schoolers out there, pretend you are now in undergrad. And for all the undergrad people, we're now going to start with you. I'm going to start with Dr. Rashonda on this question. Recommendations for any classes you think people have to take in their first year. Like, hey, look, I don't care what you want to be. If you say you want to be a doctor, year one, you got to take this. Any recommendations?
So I kind of wish I had listened to my mom. My mom's an educator. And so my first year, I was so gung-ho. I need to take my Gen Chem. I need to take my first class of biology. I need to go ahead and take my calculus. Don't do that. The reason I'm saying that because this is a very, very long journey. Okay. And it takes a lot out of you. It's a great thing to be a doctor, but you need to be strategic and you need to be smart about it. Most times, if you are pre-med, you are going to have to take that first Gen Chem, the first maybe pre-cal or calculus, depending on what you took in high school. And I would say not to give yourself too many science classes that first semester. You need to get your feet wet with number one, being independent by yourself, figuring out how to cook for yourself, how to wake yourself up. It's a big difference coming from being at home to now I'm by myself and no one's telling me to go to class. I can tell myself to go to class, right? So definitely take your Gen Chem, whatever math class you need. Some people I think may took an anatomy class, but you may take that a little bit later. I would take something that's not as stressful. I took a nutrition class. And I initially started off as biology, which everyone was biology. Everybody thought it was going to be a doctor. So everybody was either biology or general chemistry. By second semester, half those people had dropped out of being pre-med. And by sophomore year, even more people had dropped out. So by sophomore year, you know for sure if who's actually going to take that route and who's not. So definitely get your sciences in because you kind of have to if you're on that pre-med track. And then the second semester or first year, you'll probably get your second Gen Chem with the additional math you may need. If you can throw in a biology class and you feel like you can handle it, that's fine. But just kind of see how you do that first semester because you still need your bases. You have to get your English, your maybe like psych or something. I'm trying to think back. It's been a while, guys. But you need to get your other classes in, like your English classes and those things. So maybe kind of sprinkle some of those in that first year, just to kind of give you a buffer. At the end of the day, your science GPA is what matters for med school. I'm just gonna put it out there. Yes, it's great to be in clubs and organizations. It's great to, have A's in your English class and in your psychology class. Those things are awesome and it makes you a well-rounded person. But at the end of the day, They want to see your science score. They want to see your MCAT score. That is bottom line. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, we all have had struggles in trying to get to where we are now, and maybe had to go a different route. But at the end of the day, for you all that are in undergrad, hear me loud and clear. Science GPA, MCAT score. Those things you really need to make sure you're working on, especially physics, your math classes as well. I think they kind of take that into account. So if you're struggling, ask for help. Do not sit there and struggle. You need to ask for help as soon as you realize, hey, I'm not too good in calculus. I'm not too good in physics. I'm struggling on my Gen Chem. I'm telling you this because I didn't do it. I struggled my first, maybe the second semester, because I thought I was this bright student, which I was, but I did not know how to study for a science class. And so, you know, I would definitely, again, recommend the basic sciences that you need. And usually your pre-med advisor will kind of let you know what you need to kind of keep you on track. But don't take 3 science classes your first semester. Try to sprinkle something that may be a little easier for you. And you don't have to be a science major. I changed my major. I changed my major to public health my sophomore year. So I had friends who were art majors, they were dance majors. It doesn't matter what your major is, as long as you get your science prerequisites done and you take your MCAT and do well, it doesn't matter. So that would be my recommendations kind of for that first year.
Great question. And just so everyone knows, as a moderator, and my favorite thing is engagement from the crowd. So I think your questions are more important than the preset questions I have. I have a bunch of them, but we are going to answer your questions first and foremost, and then we'll come back to mine. So the only question I'm going to ask from my preset list, just to knock it out because you brought it up, Dr. Roshana, and then we'll go to these next 2 questions. If everyone can go around, Dr. Roshana just said hers, so I'm gonna start with student Dr. Chioma. What was your major and why, pros and cons that you can think of, you know, and then we are going to hop into what everyone's probably worried about, the MCAT.
My major in undergrad was public health science. I came in as public health. I knew I didn't want to do biology. Everyone feels like you have to do biology, chemistry, etc. But you can major in whatever you want as long as you take those pre-med classes. Like if you are passionate about biology, if you're passionate about chemistry, then go ahead and major in those things, but don't feel like you have to in order to get into medical school. And I really did enjoy my public health classes. I think that it honestly will help me in the future as a doctor, having that little bit of public health knowledge that I do have. So yes.
Great. Dr. Anthony?
Yeah, I was English, actually. So I was English with molecular biology, and yeah, it doesn't matter what your major is. MCAT, science GPA, absolutely.
And I was the corny one who was the biology major. At a liberal arts college, we don't have as in-depth as some people have. Like, it's like whatever the basics are. And I just actually liked bio. And my backup was going to be, sure, maybe I'll work in a lab somewhere or something like that. So I did do bio. That was me. I am the corny one. The pros are a lot of the prereqs do overlap with the requirements to be a bio major. The only con I'll say is I had to do more science afterwards. So to Dr. Roshana's point, all right, I did the prereqs. Ooh, yeah, my prereq GPA was a 3.5. Now I got to go take, you know, Orgo 2 and stuff like that and all these other classes or like advanced biology. I'm like, now it's scary. So it probably would have been higher if I had done something less, but I did enjoy it. All right, so now we've gotten through majors. Everyone knows what majors you can choose whatever you want. Prereqs matter more, MCATs matter more. And that takes us to the first question. When should we start preparing for the MCAT? I am gonna go in order of what looks like the screen backwards. So we're gonna talk with the person who took it the most recently. And then we're gonna rock, paper, scissors for who took it the oldest. So Dr. Chioma, or student Dr. Chioma, since you're student doctor, you're the most recent, so you're first.
So I think in terms of when to start studying for the MCAT, it depends on whether you want to take a gap year, gap years, or go straight through. So for me, I did take one gap year, as I mentioned, and I studied. So I took the MCAT the April of my senior year, right before I was about to graduate. And I started studying kind of loosely like the summer before my senior year. And then I started intensely studying about 6 months prior, so like the November of my fall semester of senior year. And it was a little bit different for me because I took the MCAT around the time of COVID. So we were still doing virtual classes, and I had kind of more time to study, but I gave it like 6 dedicated months of studying. But what I would say is make sure whatever semester you decide to start studying, that your course load, try and make it as little as possible or as light as possible in comparison to your other semesters, because from speaking to my mentees and just classmates, people in general, I think that one of the biggest roadblocks is when people have too much on their plate while still trying to study for the MCAT. So, while we do have obligations and things happen, just try your best to focus in that time and have that dedicated time to studying.
Excellent. Because you are the younger attending by your CV and LinkedIn profile, Dr. Rashana, you are next.
So for me, again, a little non-traditional route. Again, if you go straight through, there's nothing wrong with that. Typically, if you're going straight through, you'll start studying junior year.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm not correct. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, you'll start studying junior year. So initially I was going to try to go straight through. And so I actually signed up for a Kaplan course. That was a little pricey, but I was able to get a discount. And the course consisted of class. It was in the afternoon. It was maybe 1 or 2 hours, maybe 2 or 3 times a week for about 6 weeks. They provided you books. Now, again, this was when the MCAT score was 2-digit scores. Okay, so this has been some time ago. Now it's 3-digit scores. So at that time, I did take a course. I don't know if it helped me enough because, again, like she was saying, you need to make sure your course load is not heavy. I had a heavy course load. I think I was taking 2 science classes. I think I was taking biochem, anatomy, and then like physics. I was taking a lot, plus trying to study for the MCAT. That's not a good idea. So if you think you need a course, you need someone that can kind of say, hey, you read page 1 through 10 on Tuesday and you answer these questions. That's totally fine. They also have these things online as well that you can do. For me, I ended up going to get my master's. And so our master's program was kind of set up to where they kind of told us when to start studying. So we start studying, preparing at least the year before, but like she said, maybe 6 months is when you really want to like get down to where you're studying, you're grinding it out for the next 6 months. What I will recommend though is number one, this process will reveal things about yourself that you did not know. If you have any negative talk, any baggage, any stress, any outside forces that's causing you stress, you need to get rid of those things. And the reason I say that is, again, I'm speaking from experience. You need to be able to be level-headed, calm, and stress-free. Now, again, life happens. You can't control if someone passes away or, someone gets sick. But if you have a nagging boyfriend, girlfriend, if you are stressed out because family members are constantly calling you for things, and I'm just being completely honest, life happens, right? You need to block that out. And if they love you, they will respect your boundaries. You need to make boundaries. You have to study. You have to focus. You have no time for anything extra. You need to be eating correctly. You need to be getting at least 7 hours of sleep. You need to be drinking water. You need to be working out. You need to have a balanced life as much as possible. A lot of times people would say, oh, I'm gonna study for 12 hours and just, no, that's not really gonna be beneficial. Have we all done it? Yes. But now that I can kind of look back and say, I wish I was a little more balanced, and that I had a actual plan. Get you a study buddy, come up with a plan. You have us now. If you need to reach out to one of us and say, hey, can you sit down with me, help me make a study plan? We will be more than willing to do so. There are multiple programs out there, Princeton Review, Kaplan. I actually I can't think of the other one. I think of it, I'll send it to them and send you all in the email. But there are a lot of programs that you can take to help you study for the MCAT. And then asking people who are in med school, those will probably be the best people to ask, especially first year med students, because they are just getting into it. But you have to be focused. You have to have a balanced life, and then you have to do your questions. Practice testing. I also have a link I'll send to you, Dr. Love, as well. about how to study and how to do repetitive studying and being able to kind of actually solidify that knowledge and active learning. I don't know if you all have really no difference between active and passive learning. There's a difference. Highlighting, reading through note cards, reading through notes is passive. Active learning is actually teaching me. Can you get on a whiteboard and teach me and tell me how glycolysis works from beginning to end? Okay. Can you tell me how the heart works? You know, those things are actively learning and actually doing practice questions. So I'll stop there. I have a lot of tips and things, but biggest thing that I'm going to tell you all to do is get a balanced life. Working out, eating healthy, drinking water, getting sleep, and blocking out any distractions that's going to affect you and be able to actually focus.
And Dr. Anthony, when did you take it? And just so everyone's aware, after he answers this question, a rapid fire through a lot of these, and then about 7:15, we got to tackle a big thing, MD versus DO. And then hopefully by 7:25, we'll tackle the bigger thing, US versus international. So Dr. Anthony.
Yeah, Dr. Rashawn is completely on track here. I was also a 2-digit MCAT person, so it's been some time. Again, courses are very useful if you're going to go through and graduate in 4 years. I think whether you're doing at the end of your second year, going into your third year, or during your third year is probably the best way to go. I did prep for MCAT after my second year into my third year, did a summer Kaplan review course as well. So that's a very fair point. Again, I'll echo, don't just passively try to learn. You really want to try and get your hands on as many real questions as you can. I think that you can buy tests that have real questions that are released by the board examinations. And then if you go do Kaplan, Berkeley, or Princeton review, they have their own approximations of questions as well. All of them are good to get your mindset into what it will feel like on test day. Because interestingly enough, even if you have all the basic knowledge, which I think everyone does going into the test, applying that knowledge, making sure you're clear-minded enough to read the stems when they're reversing things, to try and really understand what they're asking, it's a huge help on your final score. So I will defer the rest because some amazing things have already been said.
Yes. All right, everyone get ready for your rapid fire. I took the test 2007. I got a 25. I don't mind telling you my score because I already got the code. And 25, if you change it to the 3-digit score, would be somewhere around a 510. Dr. Anthony, are you comfortable sharing your score?
Yeah, back in the day it was 36, but I'm not sure what that translates into the 3 digits now.
Dr. Rashawn,
it was 2007.
Are you
So I struggled with standardized testing. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I think I had a 23. So that probably been less than a 500 probably, or again, I don't know what's equivalent now, but back in that day, if you had I think like 28 to 30 was kind of what they really, really wanted. But I did other things to kind of help myself get into med school. And so, we can, if you guys have questions later, I'll give you all my information. We can talk, but that's kind of where I was.
And student Dr. Chioma, I know you're still in med school, but if you don't mind sharing, if it's not too personal.
Yes, I got a 508.
All right. So yeah, all about there. And of course, she goes to Howard, and my school is about a 510. So you see how that links up. I'm going to rapid fire these, and then we'll get to some other ones. If you don't have an A in your science course, it's already been stated, GPA matters, right? That's accumulation of scores, not one class. So if you don't have an A, you got a B or a C, then get the A's another one. We care about GPA. We kind of talked about majors already. It's about you, because GPA matters. Take a STEM major or a non-STEM major, whichever will get you the best GPA. We'll go over extensive materials in a second. How many clinical hours would you shoot for when applying in med school? I'm going to throw that to just student Dr. Chioma, since she's in med school. Do you have a specific number you'd say, or is it just do as much as God provides?
Honestly, I could not give you a specific number. I would have to look on my application. For anybody that's interested in the exact number, you can reach out to me afterwards and I can give you that information. But I remember I was working about 3 hours in the clinic, volunteering during my sophomore and junior years before COVID hit. So there's that.
All right, last rapid fire question. Yes, a master's helps you get into med school, especially if the masters show that you got a better GPA, right? So don't go get a master's and then get a 2.0 in your master's program. Then the med school is going to think you can't do med school. So just be careful with that. All right. And the doubts about becoming a doctor and jumping in keep us motivated. We will get into that when we talk about our different degrees. And it's 7:10 Central, 8:10 Eastern. I have to get to the big topic because this is being recorded for those who are watching. DO versus MD. We have one DO on our panel. Don't feel like we're jumping on you. You can take myself out. And we have 2 MDs and someone in MD school. For those who do not know, DL is Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. You know what? I'm gonna take a step back, right? Let the experts talk about the experts. I'm gonna let Dr. Roshana talk about the tenets, what it means to be a DO. And then we're gonna go into the question, especially with student Dr. Chioma. Hey, why'd you apply to MD versus DO? And then Dr. Anthony and myself will dive into the differences we see on our side. So Dr. Roshana.
Yeah. So I did not know much about DO when I was in my master's program. My master's program was at a school that was a DO school. So that's kind of how I learned more about it. Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine has been around for many years, since the 1800s. Back in the day, there was a stark difference between DO versus MD. Still to this day, we take an additional course known as Osteopathic Manipulative Medicine during med school. And so that basically teaches you other ways to be able to manipulate the body and use other techniques outside of medication to help certain conditions, right? Completely honest and transparency, I don't use it now. Most times with those techniques, you need to have time, you have to be able to bill for it. I work in the hospital, a busy hospital, so definitely don't have time for it. Most times you will see doctors that are DOs actually do these manipulative techniques in their outpatient offices. So like a family medicine doctor, you might see that happen. We took the exact same classes as everyone else did on the MD side, the same anatomy, biochem, whatever classes you all had to take, we took the exact same classes. It was a little more of a challenge because depending on where you wanted to go for residency, and which has changed a little bit. So as I was coming through, there's a separate test for boards. So you have your steps for MD, but then we also have COMLEX, which is our board testing. But a lot of us took both because we didn't want to just pigeonhole ourselves as just one DO versus MD when it comes to residency. So a lot of the people that wanted to do surgery, anesthesia, OB, a lot of them took both of the tests, which was a lot to do to study for 2 different board exams because they're just a little bit different. For the most part, they're about the same. But again, because we took that extra course, they would ask us questions about the course, the manipulative courses that we took. Now a lot of it is really the same classes. Most of us now just take STEP. I think they have the option to still take the osteopathic boards just so you can kind of go through and graduate from DO school. But I know a lot of people still take both because they want to get into these other specialties. Let's just be real about it. There's still sometimes that DO versus MD, depending on where you go. Training in in Detroit area, a lot of DOs were there, so it wasn't as foreign. Coming back to the South, some people still don't know what a DO is. So Florida is a little more DO friendly. So it is something just to think about. You can still get through the same route. You can still get to the same endpoint. I have a friend that's a DO, as an anesthesiologist, surgeon, family medicine, internal medicine, OB, orthopedic surgery. I have friends that are DOs in every specialty. So if you want it, it can be done. I think it just depends on what region you're looking at, if they're more DO friendly or not. But at the end of the day, even if you have DO behind your name, if your scores speak for you and you have done well, it doesn't matter. Because at this point, we all kind of get trained the same. Again, we only take an extra course during med school, which most of us now really don't use it because we don't have the time to. So you know, I think sometimes people say, oh, it's easy to get in DO school. Not necessarily. It's still a medical school. You still have to have the grades. You still have to have the MCAT scores. For me personally, because I was already there and I got my master's program, like Dr. Love was saying earlier, don't do a post-bac or master's and you don't do well. I did well in my master's program. That was because I didn't do as well as I wanted to in my science courses. This gave me an opportunity to show you, because I actually took classes with some of the med students and with those same professors. So they got to see who I was and, you know, what I could do. And I think that helped a lot. So, yeah, those are kind of just the main differences is really at the med school level. Once you kind of get out working, we all do the same thing, take the same boards. It's really no big difference.
And student Dr. Chioma, as someone who just applied, you had to go through that nitty gritty. How did you make that decision of MD school versus DO school, especially after the COVID era?
So honestly, for me, I think what fueled I only applied to all MD schools. And I think that was highly because a lot of my mentors were all MDs. I didn't have too many DO mentors. In hindsight, maybe I could have done a bit more research on the DO side, but I think it was just based on what I saw mostly. But I do think that from having some friends who are in DO school, their approach definitely focuses a bit more on preventative medicine as opposed to the MD route. There is an aspect from my knowledge of preventative medicine in MD, but I think that the holistic body care is more so for DO schools. And most recently, I did a mission trip to Ghana around December of last year, and there were quite a few DO students and DO doctors along with us, and they were able to provide that OMT, that osteopathic manipulative therapy, I believe. And obviously as MDs, we couldn't do that. So if international medicine is something that you're interested in, that may prove beneficial, the DO route. But like Dr. Roshana was saying, I believe it's kind of the same.
And Dr. Anthony, in your practice, have you seen any difference between yourself and the DO colleagues? Are they not allowed to do anything in your hospital? How have you worked with them?
Some of the most brilliant physicians I've ever worked with are DOs. Some of my best teachers are DOs. We do the exact same boards as them. They do the board, the USMLEs like we do. Once you're graduated, you do the same specialty boards. You know, some of the best doctors I know are DOs. So all of us take different paths. There are different journeys that we have. Just some basic stats that I looked up. As of 2023, there are 148,000 DO grads. There were 7,900 grads in 2023 who were, I apologize for my phone in the background there, 7,900 DO grads who matched residency in 2023. All specialties up and down the board, dermatology, everything. So as far as DOs go, if you go the DO route, you can do anything. And they are fantastic physicians. So I know that coming in from perhaps high school or undergraduate, it may not be as familiar a term, but DOs, as they say, DOs can do. They can do it, you know? And so really wonderful options for the DOs. As far as the MD side goes, I think that you know, Dr. Love can speak to USMDs. I did a IMG course myself. I can talk about that more later or now if you prefer.
In 2 minutes, let me just wrap up the DO discussion, and then I'm actually
Go for it.
So I'm gonna use one of Dr. Roshana's terms. Let's talk about it. So one of the things we need to talk about is why there's a little difference. One, MDs, which has kind of been around longer and has that prestige. So that's why many of you have not heard about it. Also, Dr. Anthony touched on it. There was, and Dr. Roshana as well, there was that theory that DO school was easier to get into. And I use that in quotes because it was used as like a substandard. Google. The average MCAT for DO school as of September 2024 was a 503 for y'all 3-digit people, or 503.6, let me be fully. And MD school was a 506.5, right? So not that huge. And the average GPA for DO schools was 3.53, and average GPA for MD schools was 3.62. I can say when I applied back again in 2007, 2008, those numbers were actually further apart. But I think the cat is out of the bag. The secret's out of the bag. DO school is med school. That number is coming a lot closer. And you can see it also in the residency numbers. So for all those out there who are in undergrad, I highly encourage you to at least look at a DO school, especially if you're going to apply in the state. Just kind of compare the numbers and be like, oh yeah, I can do this. You can do any specialty. You can work in any field. DOs have been my bosses, so just throwing that out there. Don't, especially if you want to go to school in the U.S., don't cut off, 30% of U.S. schools just because you didn't know about 2 letters. That I'll say there. But now we're getting into the nitty gritty. For those out there, you studied for the MCAT, you got your score, you're not going to take any more, you're applying to schools. I know on my undergrad flyers, there were flyers saying, come out to this island med school. You can come out here to either Grenada or Barbados or all these other schools. And it sounded good, med school on the beach, but I never really knew about it. So Dr. Anthony, fill us in. Is it med school with cocktails? Or is it med school with hurricanes? Or is it just med school? Like, please fill us in on the journey there.
Thanks very much. And so, yeah, I went to St. George's. It is the largest of the Caribbean medical schools. There are several other large ones you may hear about: Ross, AUC, AUA. So all of them are med schools. They're very hard. In my first year, I was talking to my sister who went to medical school in New York. She came down to see me on the beach and she thought, oh, this is beautiful. But then as she saw how things were progressing in that first term, she's like, I guess you can be miserable anywhere on the planet, Jokes aside, medical school it's not just a process of receiving information. You also have to be willing to put in at the same time what you hope to get out. It's a two-way process, and it's a two-way process where you get to learn and you really reap the benefits of what you're willing to put in. So St. George's, we had classes that were, no joke, about 1,000 people in size. And, we had a lot of pressure. A lot of people end up going home too. We ended up having a great deal of people who didn't finish the course and decided to do other things, move on. So that was hard. But at the end of it, we had 945 people in my class who ended up matching to first-year residency positions in the US or in Canada. We had people who did everything, from anesthesiology, emergency, dermatology, vascular surgery. We had people going to fellowships at Harvard for GI and for, trauma surgery. You can really do everything. It's just a matter of, again, if you know what you're looking for, you get the right research, the right mentors, the sky's the limit. And so it's definitely an option to consider. I think certainly if you have the opportunity to go to a US MD or DO school, that's probably a different experience. You may have more opportunities at academic centers. You may have more local ties to the communities that you're going to be in and doing your residency in. And there's certainly still some people who will, not regard that as highly as others in terms of applications, residencies, et cetera. But in my career now, since 2017, I've only had one person ask me about where I got my medical degree. Because at the end of the day, if you're providing excellent care to your patients, you are a good teacher to your students and to your residents, you're a good coworker. If you show you have a passion and dedication to medicine, truly, the sky is the limit.
I agree with that. And I want to give context to everyone in the chat. Student Dr. Chioma, how many people are in your class right now?
Right now, it's about 126.
126 to 1,000 something. I think that is the big thing that people get when they go to a US-based med school and a Caribbean-based med school. From the people I've worked with and talked to, and let me know if anyone else has had this on the panel, the classes are way larger. And let us know if you felt this, Dr. Anthony, a little more dog eat dog, like, hey, I got to take my classes too. We can't really share resources with 1,000 people. Whereas like, if it's 100, we can all be in the same group meet probably, but 1,000 sounds rather large, and things get a little harder there.
Yeah, I think definitely the economy of scale there is challenging, right? You end up making lifelong friends. You have to develop strong study groups on your own. The resources oftentimes you have to find on your own, but that also means that you get a chance to do a lot of self-directed learning. You know, my brother is currently second year in New York, and his experience in a class is much smaller than mine. Even though it is smaller, there are some similar elements. You really do get back what you put in. You know, when you're doing problems regularly, when you have strong study groups, these are common things, experiences to all medical students. And so, yeah, for sure, the large class sizes are an impediment. And certainly, one experience in the Caribbean medical schools is that a lot of people do end up not completing or graduating who matriculate. And so that's unfortunately one of the realities. The curves are pretty aggressive, but I think that one of the beautiful things we're talking about here in this organization is that we have a strong dedication to faith as well. And I feel that that is something that helped me through my experience in Grenada too.
Yeah, that is excellent. The only other thing I want to tag on for students who don't know, then we're going to go over some numbers, then we're going to go back to the chat. As Dr. Anthony mentioned, for those who do go to Caribbean med schools, the majority of them, because to get that MD degree to practice in the US, have to do what we call rotations in your specialties in the US. So you'll have to go and find those rotations sometimes. So a lot of students at Ross go to rotations in Florida. I've seen some up in Detroit. Some came to Michigan where I was a resident. Whereas when you're at a US-based med school, kind of like Dr. Roshana in Georgia, you're going to go to rotations in Georgia. At Howard, you go to rotations at Howard. It may be, I might go to Virginia. That's an hour-long drive, not a flight. So that tends to be some of the differences there. But again, if you get on those rotations and do great grades, you are great. So I want to show just a couple more things slide-wise, and then we're going to the questions. So everyone should know this, at least in some way, shape, or form, not to memorize it, but so we can bring things to your forefront when you make those applications. When you finish medical school, you have to apply to residency to get your specialty. Back in the day, you may have been able to ignore this. And when I say back in the day, I mean like 1890 something probably. But now you gotta have a specialty to practice just about anywhere. So I did emergency medicine, we got intro to medicine, and so on and so forth. This is 2024 people who applied to those residency programs. 19,755 went to a US MD school. All right. 8,000 went to a DO school. And then you have non-US citizens. So people like from Grenada who went to Grenada, was about 10,000. So that's a large number. And then you have graduates of USMD medical schools. That means they already graduated and were reapplying. So these categories are kind of neglected. But then you have US students, graduates, US citizens, excuse me, at your Rosses and other institutions, 4,751. So you can see there's a large swath everywhere, but most are MDs. The reason why we bring this up is everybody wants a job when they're done. So you can see the match rate data here for US osteopathic med schools. It's been going up. So again, people who thought it was easier or not as sought after, it's gone up from 88% to 92% in just 5 years. For US MD allopathic schools, it's 93.5%. It's only a 1% difference between DO and MD. So again, guys, it really doesn't matter. The US IMG route is a little lower at 67, but a lot of that I have found working with other people in the academic field is more of a prestige thing versus an intelligence thing. They're all great doctors. They're all smart, especially if they make it to that finish line over 4,000 other people. It's just a space and numbers thing. But this is well above half, 2/3 get where they need to go. So I think that is worth noting. This is also further data just into the different specialties and who matched and who didn't match, and how many for DO specifically. But again, these are all good numbers. A few had PhDs, volunteer experience, work experience. These are all things to worry about once you're in med school, but just wanted to show that path is possible. Here again are the number of IMG participants. It's been going up. People are seeing more people are coming from non-US medical schools or international medical grads. And the number of IMGs matched into US residencies are going up. It may be up and down, but they are going up. Most tend to do primary specialties, internal pathology, family neurology, but I know some who are plastic surgeons, so it doesn't matter. You can just keep working through it. I'm gonna skip. This is the number of programs that people usually have to apply to when you're a US IMG versus non-IMG. This is again people who are like in Nigeria who went to like a Nigerian medical school. Those are non-US IMGs. And then this is back to us. I will stop sharing there because I do want to dive into all of the great questions that people have. I'm gonna start. I only have time for one, but it's the most important one. We're gonna go. I'm gonna start with Dr. Anthony and go backwards this time. You kind of touched on it. That's why I'm starting with you. How did you get through med school? What was the deal? And how do you even get through being a doctor now? How do you stay motivated?
Well, that's a good call. I think I'll defer to one of my 97-year-old patients from this last week who was talking about the ways that she has been able to keep her passion for 97 years. She's still driving and just a lovely lady. Just remembering that today is the youngest you will ever be. So you have a number of paths ahead of you, whatever you're going to be doing. Make sure that you have an anchor to what's important to you and how that affects your daily life and your daily rhythm. If you are a physician, don't get burned out by the administrative problems, the business side of things. Try and remember why you got into it, which is not an easy thing always. I know the other physicians on the panel probably have had some challenging days as well. This is a noble field. It's a noble goal. If you want to do it because you're passionate about medicine and the care of your fellow man, it's a rewarding thing. And so just holding on to that is how you get through. In medical school as well, each individual test feels like a mountain of its own, and you just keep going one day at a time till you get to the next goal. And when you get to the end of it and you're able to actually help people directly as patients and be in that position, I'll defer to the rest of my panel here, but at least for me, it's been totally worth it.
Dr. Roshana?
So yeah, like he was saying, it's very difficult, it's very challenging. I actually trained during COVID, so I was on the front lines. So there are many times that I just did not want to go to work. I wanted to quit. But everyone else was staying at home and we literally had to go in, mask up, gown up. I mean, I was intubating patients, I was doing CPR, I was putting in central lines. Like I was there every single day, losing multiple patients, having a freezer truck in the back. I think for me, those first 2 years were really tough for me. I was away from home. I was in a different state. It was cold. I wasn't used to that. I had to learn how to drive in the snow. So I really was out of my comfort zone, to where I could have given up very easily, because everything kind of was stacked against me at that time. Plus, you're trying to, perform. You're trying to be the first one there, the last one to leave. You want to stand out. You want to make sure you make a good name for yourself. Most of us are probably pretty type A people. We want to make sure that I can do the job. I think what keeps me grounded is my faith and my spirituality. That's number one. No matter what what faith you believe in, having something to keep you grounded is important. Number two is having a good support system. I have amazing friends. I have amazing family. People I can call on at any point in time. So getting you a good, solid core group is going to help you get through this process. Again, I'm really big on wellness. Trying to have a hobby. I did not have a hobby my first 2 years of med school. I was go, 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 go. I got to be this great doctor. I got to make the best grades. Like it was just, I had no hobbies until I hit. And it was like, oh, okay, we can do something different. So find a hobby, something that you like. If you like to walk, run, do yoga. I do yoga. I literally just came from yoga before I got on the call with you all, because I had a stressful day at work. So get a hobby. If you like to draw, you like to paint, I don't care what it is. Find something that you like to do outside of medicine. Have friends outside of medicine, because you don't want to just talk about medicine 24/7. You do enough of it at work and in school and during training. Have a good core group that you can talk outside of medicine. and then finding a balance. It's very hard to find a balance, but again, I really stress working out, trying to eat healthy, drinking your water, getting some sleep, get a therapist. Get a therapist. It's very important. You know, we deal with a lot of different things. You know, I work in the metro area. I do a lot of homelessness, drug abuse. You know, it's just a lot. And it can be very heavy sometimes. So you have to have a good, just solid plan for yourself. So those would be my few little tips. I would say, number one, how I got through, and things I would recommend for you all to do for yourself.
And student Dr. Chioma, how do you keep yourself together as you go through the rigors of med school?
I would definitely say my faith in God is the number one thing that keeps me grounded, that keeps me going. And just understanding that this journey that I'm on, while it is my journey, it's also so much greater than me. And in order to go into medicine, I really do feel like you have to have a heart of service, a heart that allows God to use your life for the plan that He has for your life. And just understanding that bad times are not forever. Everything is temporary, and what's for you will be for you at the end of the day. I think that it's very important, as Dr. Ashana mentioned, to emphasize wellness and to never lose yourself in this process, because if you want to spend every second of every day devoting it to medicine, you very well can, and you won't even run out of things to study. There's always going to be more things to study. There's always going to be more time that you could devote to medicine, but it's up to you to prioritize yourself and to prioritize your other needs outside of medicine as well. And also understanding that there will be ups and downs, but those downs do not define you, and that, again, you are so much more than this degree as well. So yes, that's what I would say.
Amen and amen. I'm gonna answer two more rapid fires and then I'm gonna wrap up. Again, for Gregory, if you want to rewind back, I think we kind of touched on the volunteering hours a little bit. It's more about just what you got out of it versus like a certain number. If you want an easy number, 5 to 10 hours a month is more than enough. That's what, if you do 3 hours twice a week or two weekends, more than enough. If you can do 10 double digits, that's crazy. You definitely can't do that all 4 years, but keep it up for a year or two should probably be fine. For the question, can someone share about international student experiences and getting into medical school? That was not my journey. I don't think that was anyone on the panel's journey that I can think of, but it is some of our mentors and board members. But I will say
Yeah,
this.
I can speak on that.
Knock it
briefly.
out, Dr. Aniola.
Yeah, so I think there's really no difference in the journey of the international student except for money. You don't get financial aid. That's a very big difference. Yeah, that is where the struggle is. So you're not eligible for financial aid. So it's basically your parents, or you have to go into private student loans, and that can be there are some very predatory loans. They are more difficult. Obviously, the interest rates are higher for international students and compared to what you would get for financial aid. But there are some predatory loans that I can give you my email so you could stay away from those loans. But do know that they do have high interest rates. But everything here that we talked about, you're going to need it. But the major difference is that you're unfortunately not eligible for money. So you would have to find out how you're going to get that.
And you probably gave us a great idea, Stacy. We should probably have a whole panel on that, and we'll probably lean into that for the future for you guys who are on the call. The one thing, like Dr. Aniola said, that I've realized from the outside, the sooner you get in the journey pipeline in med school, the better. So if you're an international student and you can get in at the undergrad level, meaning coming to a U.S. undergrad, that's easier. Applying directly from international to a U.S. med school, that's not impossible. It's okay. The hardest is you went to an international medical school and you're an international student and you're applying to residency, meaning like you went to med school in Nigeria, a whole different system. You didn't go to any rotations in the US, and then you're just trying to apply straight to US residency. That's the hardest. So the sooner you can get in the pipeline, Stacy, the better, but we probably will have a panel on that.
And yeah, just to kind of piggyback on some of the international doctors that I do know, some of them had to repeat residency completely all back over again. So it just depends on the residency program, but I do know some people personally that had to do the full 3 years again. They were already trained and knew way more than what anybody else knew. So that is something to kind of take into account too.
Exactly. So again, this will be shared on the YouTubes and the social medias. You can contact us at Lighthouse here. We are here for you. We're all going to work for you guys. Hopefully this journey will be a little bit easier. But dig in from those, high school students all the way up to the undergrad students. We're going to be here for you guys. Send us emails, Instagrams. Again, if you're on the East Coast, we are going to try to do in-person things. There are scholarships that will be hopefully made available soon. We're going to increase the number of panels we have. We don't do them every month, but hopefully we can tap into once a quarter for you guys to tap in. Share this with everyone you know. Follow us on IG, and we're glad to be here. I'm going to ask for our wonderful creator, Dr. Aniola, to come back on and close this out as you want. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, everybody. It's kind of late now, so I'm saying all of those thank yous. You're welcome. I'll just leave with the advice. This is as my sister would say, Dr. Fola, this is a marathon, so pace yourself, trust God, and everything will be right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. As I said, we'll post the video on YouTube. I'm going to bug you guys with a few emails, share my life story with you. Don't block us, because sometimes people do, but do not block us. But thank you so much for our panelists. Thank you for sharing your time. Chioma student, Dr. Chioma, Dr. Moss, Dr. Raj, we really, really appreciate you. We really honor you. We couldn't have done this without you. We love your words of wisdom, and we pray that God blesses you as you have blessed us in Jesus' name. So thank you, everyone, and you'll be hearing from us. And thank you to our lovely hostess with the mostest, host of the mostesses, Dr. Anani. Thank you, Dr. Anani, and also our board members, Dr. Fola and Dr. Thomas. Thank you, everybody. We're very grateful. So good night. I'll be signing us out now.